Thank you very much for coming down into the Trella Lab. My name is Asia Atwood, the CEO of Trella Technologies. If you're new to Trella, new to the team, new to our product, the automated low-stress plant training solution that you see right here, I'm thrilled to be able to introduce you to what we've been up to. We've been on social media for about a year. I just found out right before we went live today that our very first live session was about a year ago from today. So I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we've got a little bit of history to what we've been doing. We've been working on this for quite some time, and this is the first time that we're actually showing the unit live with a plant in it. This is actually our 5th design that we've worked on. So we're thrilled to go. I work with a team of individuals. It's not just me. You may see me on a lot of the events and my face on things, but behind the face there's a group of individuals, about over a dozen team members that we have that help us out with the development of Trella, with the development of our brand, with our social media marketing, and just with advising and consulting us as well. So we've got Dre, my co-founder. Dre is Andres Chamorro. He's the 3rd of his kind, and he goes by the name of Dre. He and I met when we were at Northeastern University. We were friends right off the bat, had a couple of classes together, and just stayed in touch over the years. Wound up working on another project together prior to Trella, and then decided that we wanted to start our own company as well. So it took us a while to figure out what it is that we really wanted to do, and this idea kind of came to us organically, out of the blue. I was hanging out, taking some time off from work, and had a time to kind of think about what it is that I wanted to do with the next round of growing that I was trying to accomplish. I was growing for about 2 to 3 years prior to that, and was trying to figure out how do I want to grow my next round of plants, and hit a wall, and in regards to trying to make sure that I had a way to actually automatically train my plants. So this is how this was developed. But what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit more about Trella, the team, do a quick update on hemp legislation in the state of Massachusetts. For those of you that are new, again, we are located in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. We're about an hour and a half south of Boston, and we really have to deal with a lot of the Northeast seasonal climate issues here. So we have a lot of indoor growing, not a lot of outdoor growing. But we're going to talk about hemp, and then we're also going to let you know about some stuff that's going on in regards to the business and how you can participate. We've also got a new group called the Growers Club that we're starting up just now. So if you're interested in being a part of this process, seeing a lot more of the behind the scenes of what it is that we do, how we do what we do, definitely make sure that you check out the Growers Club. And in order to see the Growers Club, all you need to do is just go to Trella.io, Trella.io, and if you're interested, click on the Growers Club, and then there's also clicking on the Invest button, and we'll talk a little bit more about the investment opportunity as well. But before we really dig in, looks like I got my man Ash on the line. Are you good, Ash?
Hey, I'm good.
Awesome.
How do I sound?
You sound great. You sound great. So yeah, like I said before, we've got a group of individuals that help us out. I'm located on Cape Cod. Dre and I are both in Massachusetts. We've got a team of engineers that help us out. They all work remotely. It's kind of strange. We kind of operate more as a startup, a modern startup, where we use a lot of resources that are in remote locations. So we've got engineers in Chicago, engineers in North Carolina, engineers in New York, and we all work together, and we all do a lot of video conferencing. We use Slack for those of you that might be in the startup world or the entrepreneurial world. We use Slack, so that's a way that we keep the team communicating. But what we're doing today is I wanted to kind of go through some stuff, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk. When we first tried to come up with what it is that we wanted to share about this particular live, there's lots to talk about. We could talk about the unit, the features, the benefits, but we don't want to overwhelm you, and we also want it to be an organic conversation. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to talk, but in order to make sure that the process and that we get through everything we're going to get through, my man Ash is going to help out. He's our social media manager, and just does an excellent job. If you look at our old social media posts things that we did about a year ago, and then you look at what we're doing right now, you can see that there's been obviously some changes, but there's been a very drastic and really cool modern change in some of our graphic artwork and in the content that we're posting as well. And that's due to Ash and Chrissy from Complimention. So I just want to give them a shout out. But yeah, Ash, what do we got on the docket for today?
Yeah, so I just figured we'd just talk. Let's have a conversation. How does that sound?
All right, sounds good. Let's do it.
Great. So it's a beautiful machine you're sitting in front of there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is the fifth design. The very first one that we did not look anything like this. Not at all. We went through doing it by hand. We did manual plant training first. And for those of you that might be a little bit new to plant training is when you're manually by hand tying the plant or cutting and trimming the plant to control the shape of the plant. Especially when you're growing indoors, like I am. I'm sitting indoors right now under a set of lights. I've got about 4.5 feet between the ground and the top of the lights. And when you're working indoors, you got to control how tall that plant gets. And you also want to make sure that you spread it out evenly so that the light is able to penetrate what we call the canopy, the top of the plant, as evenly as possible. So what we decided to do is we decided to do it by hand. And it was a manual plant training method.
How long does something like that take to construct by hand?
So if you're going to do manual plant training, it can definitely vary. What a lot of people will do is a method called scrogging. Scrog, that's S-C-R-O-G, scrog, screen of green is short for. And it depends on how big of a canopy area that you're trying to create. But if you were trying to do a 4 by 4 foot canopy, in some cases it can take people up to 4 months to train that plant to grow out in a nice uniform manner. And that's when you're doing it manually. And the reason why it takes so long when you're doing it manually is because you're having to trim, cut, prune the plant, manipulate the plant, and whenever you trim, prune, or overly manipulate the plant, you'll stress the plant. And when you stress the plant, it actually causes the plant to stop growing. It slows down. It just decides, all right, I've had a few changes in my anatomy. I got to figure out what to do with the water and nutrients so that I maintain my health. I need a break. So it stops growing for about 3 or 4 days, depending on how severe the trimming, the pruning, or the training method is. And then it starts again. But in order to really manually train a plant so that you're spreading it out evenly under all of these lights, you have to do it a few times. It's not just training it once, you're training it maybe every 3 or 2 to 3 days. You really got to stay on top of it. And that was one of the issues that I had.
Wow, so how often do you guys get together as a team to work on the device? I know you guys, well, obviously I have my insights, but like how often you guys actually, like, you have a schedule that you follow as engineers to put this together?
Yeah, so that's the key about our working remote. And I've, even in my past career, I was an engineering manager and managed a group of 30 engineers. I would say actually less than 30 engineers, a few supervisors, but nonetheless, they were all the way from like Washington, D.C., all the way up to Maine. And we had to work remotely as a team. So I took a lot of those methods from my past experience in corporate America and brought them into what we're doing at Trella. So we do have a schedule. We use Slack a lot, and with Slack, if you're not familiar with it, it's a way for teams to communicate seamlessly. It removes email chains. It's an awesome, awesome product. And in most cases, it's free. Entrepreneurs, we love free. We love free stuff. We love when we don't have to pay for expenses. So you can use Slack to keep in contact every day. But in regards to having that face-to-face communication, where you're actually able to really make sure that you understand the tone, understand what's really going on in that engineer or in that team member's environment, we get together at least once a week. So our social media team, we get together once a week. My public relations manager and I get together once a week. The engineers get together once a week, and those are always face-to-face communications. And then in regards to the actual build, when we're building the device, that takes place in several stages. We had a part of the process that started in Chicago. The parts were delivered to Massachusetts. We assembled some of the parts in another location, not here, but in a different location in Mass. Did a lot of the assembly there. Then we brought it here, and I put together the electronics and got the software and the coding together with another one of our engineers that's in North Carolina. He can remote in and do work from wherever he is on the device. So we've really tried to set it up so that we're able to work remotely, and people can do work when they need to, and that they're not waiting for me in order to know what to do next. And it's been working out pretty well so far.
So logistics-wise, the company is pretty spread far and wide, but everybody kind of works together in a network, even with physical units and parts.
Yeah. I mean, this unit was touched by somebody in Chicago and someone in Massachusetts. We've got an engineer that created a 3D printed part that we put on this thing. He created it, we printed it here in Massachusetts, and then I installed it. So those are the types of things those are the ways that we work together. And I think the thing about it is that everybody really believes in the product, and they're excited to work on it, and it's a great team of individuals, and I'm thrilled to have them all as a team. So thanks, y'all.
Sweet. So like, entrepreneurial-wise, like, you mentioned having a background, like a corporate America background a little bit, and we notice you're always on tour. Handling your social media is really, really like, it's crazy. 1 second you're promoting a show. It's like you're an artist almost. You tour so much. How do you go from like being in the studio or in the lab, if you will, in the laboratory working on the device, to just like being in front of people giving these public presentations?
Yeah. I mean, so for those of you that know me and are getting to know me better, I'm an introvert naturally. I can do extroverted activities, but they drain the bejesus out of me. I mean, they exhaust me. But my corporate background, my past life, I was a trainer. I started out learning a lot of things and being a consultant, where I actually had clients that I would consult with and people that I had to, kind of gain their trust and get them to understand my value. So I had to learn how to speak to a lot of different individuals. And then when I got to a certain level in my career, I started training other engineers. So that's a lot of public speaking and presenting to engineers. And then when I got into the management position, there was a lot of speaking on behalf of the company, speaking to upper management, and then really trying to figure out, how to kind of work my way through that corporate jungle, I like to say. But it was a learning experience, and I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing, though. I always wanted to kind of control my own vision and see my own vision through, and this is the reason why I made the transition from corporate America to Trella Technologies. And one last thing I'll say about that point, Ash, in regards to transitioning from corporate to Trella, one of the main reasons why people become entrepreneurs is that they want to do something, they have a vision, a dream that they're trying to see through, and it usually doesn't look like something else that's been done before. So you'll notice that with Trella, we do things differently, and we try to do things that, support the industry, the cannabis industry. We want to be good corporate citizens. We want to support the community that we're in. We want to make sure that we have sustainable, jobs that are sustainable, and we're able to actually do this the way that we really want to do it, and we're thrilled. We're thrilled about it.
Oh, great! And you mentioned briefly that you're really an introvert. So do you find yourself spending time alone with the device, just kind of thinking, or how does that work?
Yeah. So I'm in the lab by myself almost every day. The time that I'm down here by myself definitely varies. I do find that it does kind of rejuvenate me hanging out with the plants in the lab. I definitely, I'm below grade, and below grade means I'm in a basement. That's me using weird terms, my bad. But below grade means I'm in a basement, so there's not a lot of windows. I don't get to see the daylight when I'm down here, so I try not to stay down here for too long. But it's definitely one of my favorite places to be, is in this lab. But I'm also looking forward to our future lab when we have a bigger space that we can really kick it into gear with.
And then that transition from the lab to just being in big rooms with people and pitching, this and proposing the Trella to like investors, or proposing it to like people who want to potentially buy it one day, or just to inspire other entrepreneurs, how do you go from that to like your circle, your team of engineers, to a whole room of people? How do you manage that transition?
Well, I think you're seeing it happening right now, right? We're trying to do that process where a lot of the stuff that we were doing in the past was very internal. We might do some lives very quickly, but we didn't really share a lot about what we were doing. And what we're trying to do right now is to transition from just being, in the lab and showing the world what it is that we're trying to do with this automated plant trainer.
Awesome. So do you find yourself doing anything like personally outside of work to like maintain a healthy focus, balance, or just that really sharp focus that you have? How do you keep that so low?
Oh, well, I think it's a few things, and the first is discipline to actually keep to the schedule. And it took me a while to really figure out what I need to be healthy and to be balanced and to be rested and to stay on top of it, It took a while, but really what it is just a combination of a lot of morning preparation, meditating, sitting quietly, journaling. I go for a walk with my chocolate lab a lot. We do a lot of nature walks. I like nature a lot.
Nice.
And then I get going for the day. So it takes me a couple of hours to rev up. Of course, the other benefit is that I'm a medical cannabis patient. And because of that, and because of my knowledge of the cannabis plant and the understanding that I have of how it can be used to supplement my lifestyle, my busy lifestyle, my entrepreneurial lifestyle, I also consume cannabis in the morning as well to help prepare my brain. So it's a bunch of things.
Nice, awesome. So sometimes you just get out there in the morning and in the weather, regardless of the temperature, and just get that walk in. Is it like you have to do this every morning type of thing?
Yeah. I'll punk out some mornings when it's like really drenched down raining, but in most cases, I'll get out there. It's been okay lately. If you're in the Northeast, in like the Boston, Massachusetts area, we've experienced rain last week for like several days in a row.
Wow.
And I actually just started doing outdoor grow. I used to only do indoor growing before this year. This year was my first time getting outdoors, putting together some soil pots and starting a few plants. And I started a few, and unfortunately 2 of them already are showing signs of mold. And that's just from like the rain. It's been so rainy and so humid lately that you really have to, when you're growing in the Northeast like I am, or in humid climates, you really have to pick strains that are adaptable to a humid climate. Or you gotta grow them indoors. And that's one of the reasons why I really focus on indoor farming and indoor growing is, one, outdoor farming is great when you have access to healthy, arable land, great soil, lots of acres. That's great, but not everybody has access to that. And then also, it's really difficult to control the climate depending on where you are, especially on the East Coast. So growing indoors is definitely a necessary thing. And the other thing to add to indoor growing that kind of pulls from my old background is I used to deal with natural catastrophes and evaluating how bad a hurricane, earthquake, or flood would be. And I've seen a lot of damage from hurricanes, earthquakes, and floods, and I understand what happens to farms. The food, there are food shortages when Florida has a hurricane. Avocado prices go up. So, indoor farming is definitely going to be a necessity as we move forward, especially with climate change and things like that going on.
So, does the device have its own mold prevention system built in, or did you account for that specifically in this model?
Yeah. So one of the first trials, the first method that we did, and I talked about this a little bit before, but this is the 5th design. This is design number 5. The first 2 versions that we did by hand. The size of the units were a lot smaller. The plant and the volume that the plant had to actually grow within was very tight. And because of that, we were starting to develop stagnant air, which means air that's not moving. We weren't getting a lot of airflow through the plant. So we were actually really starting to develop issues with mold. So we decided to include a feature of ventilation. So I'm not sure if you can see it from here, but there are a series of fans right now, 2 fans that are on, that are blowing air from below up into the plant. Right now we've got one plant that just started. This is what we call the early veg stage. So what happens, for those of you that might be new to this unit, this automated plant training system, you start with one plant. It starts all the way on this side, which I would say is your left, and then over time it slowly moves down this pathway as the plant continues to grow. How does it do that? How does it know that it's time to move? How does it know that the plant is growing? Well, you see that green ring on the top? You can see a little bit of foliage poking through. That's the top of the plant. When the top of the plant gets to be too much, when it accumulates too much in that ring, the ring will sense that. It will move incrementally, ever so slightly, down the pathway over time. So we're seeing the very beginning stage. But we do have fans in the unit to make sure that we don't have stagnant air that's not moving, because what can happen, what that will lead to is it will lead to mold, it will lead to bacteria. So once we added the fans, once we got those fans in there, we did some testing on our flower, and we eradicated or got rid of the mold issue just by adding ventilation. So ventilation is definitely key. We wanted to make sure to add a little bit additional ventilation to our unit to make sure we don't have mold issues.
So that's a real plant in there right now?
This is a real plant. This is Chem Dog number 4. That's the strain that's in there right now. It's actually an indica dominant strain, and most people think that when you talk about indicas and sativas, you're really, I mean, a lot of people, we're getting away from categorizing plants as indica and sativas. We're really just talking about individual strains. But old school thinking was indicas were short plants, sativas were tall plants. But that's not necessarily true, because this is actually an indica dominant strain that if you were growing it outdoors, it could grow all the way to 7 feet. And we're going to grow it indoors. We're going to keep it to 3 feet of height, and then we're going to grow it for a 6-foot distance. So we're going to be able to get a good, healthy yield out of this plant indoors, just by growing it sideways versus growing it vertically.
Speaking of yields, how many growth cycles would it take potentially to, like, say I was an investor or just a purchaser or somebody like a consumer of the device, how long would it take me to make my money back growing in this device potentially? Yeah,
that's a great question. So the way that we do it is we have units, different sizes of units. So this is our 6-foot unit right here. We also have a 4-foot unit. One thing I'll show, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I'll just show this little sheet. You can't see it, maybe? That's okay. It's all right if you can't see it, because it's available electronically. We have all of this data, all this yield data on our StartEngine page, on our StartEngine profile page. So Chrissy, maybe you can throw the URL in the comments for our StartEngine page. But if you go to our StartEngine page, it's one, it's for investment, but 2, it's also about the product. It talks about the technical aspects of it, the features, and it also talks about the yield. Now, if we're talking about our 4-foot unit, our 4-foot unit can put out 1 pound per cycle on average.
Wow.
On average. Now, this 1 pound per cycle is based on our grow trials. We did 4 grow trials. This is number 5. We did 4 grow trials. We averaged all the results, and we used the average of 2.2 ounces per square foot. If you wonder where that number comes from, definitely go to StartEngine. If you look at the graphics about the yield, you'll see that same number, 2.2 ounces per square foot. Now, that's 1 pound per cycle. But if you do a 4-foot grow, you could probably get 3 to 4 cycles in a year. Now, I know wholesale prices for cannabis are a lot cheaper than retail prices. So if you're a wholesale commercial grower, you might be able to get $1,000 per pound. So if you had 4 cycles in 1 year, you could get $4,000 in 1 unit per year. Now, but if you're in retail, like I'm a medical cannabis patient, and I still have to, deal with plant count issues. So from time to time, depending on what I need, I may go to a medical dispensary. I go to one in Brockton, Massachusetts. That one right now is charging $350 an ounce. What is it? $350 an ounce. And you're going to need 16 ounces in a pound. So that's, if you do 350 times 16, that's over $5,000. So one unit from retail will give you $5,000 worth of cannabis in one shot. If you're paying retail prices, you're going to be able to not pay $5,000 a year with one unit, and that's our 2x4 unit.
So let's talk a little bit about the utility. Trella Technologies talks a lot to commercial growers and to people who will probably buy more than one unit at a time. So when you're creating this device, are you thinking about the commercial grower more or the individual grower?
So we're trying to think about both as best we can, but to some degree there's going to be some benefits for commercials versus some benefit for residential. However, one of the big changes that we're going to make, and we're going to be doing an announcement and showing our new design, and that will be the one that goes out into the market. That new design has a few tweaks. We made a few changes, and we made those changes for both the commercial and the residential grower. The unit right now, some of the feedback that we got, we went to a few trade shows. We went to the Harvest Cup back in 2018. We went to NECAN a couple of times, and some of the feedback that we get from individuals is that they want to know whether or not they can get access to the plant. And the way that it kind of looks right now with this bottom panel, I don't know if you can see it, it's hard to sense that you can get access to the plant. So we got rid of it. We're getting rid of this panel. The new model that you're going to see, and we'll show that in a few, the new model will have more access to the grow media area. So you'll be able to get access to your soil or your hydroponic tray, or even a 5-gallon or 27-gallon storage tote you'll be able to fit down there. So we wanted to make sure that people had access to the plant a lot more. And we also wanted to make sure that you could use larger size grow media containers as well. One of the other changes that we made is that we're changing how the unit sits on the floor, because some commercial growers will want to use our system in racks, and they'll probably want to put them in 4-foot by 8-foot hydroponic trays, or flooding trays they call them. And we had to adjust the feet to make sure that they could actually sit in those trays nicely. So we did that as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yep.
So this is really great. Even for someone who's constantly getting information about the new devices, it's always really impressive to see how well this thing developed. And so, are you sitting in front of a 4-foot unit right now, or how long is that unit?
This is a 6-foot unit that we have right now.
That's a 6-foot unit.
This is a 6-foot unit. Yeah, it's 6 feet. And if you want to look at, I know a lot of people, when they see a 6-foot unit, they want to know about veg time. How long does it take to get to that veg cycle? How long does it take for the plant to go from one end all the way to the other? And it's a lot shorter than it is for scrog. Obviously, not as short as it is for Sea of Green, for those of you that know the Sea of Green method. But if you look at our StartEngine page, you'll see comparisons on veg time. One of the reasons why our method of growing is faster than scrog is because of low stress training. So if you know the name of this product, it's TrellaGro LST, TrellaGro LST. And the LST stands for low stress training. And it's not just low stress because it's automated. That's not the only reason why it's low stress. There's another reason why it's low stress. It's because you don't have to trim, prune, or manipulate your plant. And whenever you trim, prune, or manipulate your plant, you're causing stress. And whenever you cause stress, you slow down the growth time. You cause the plant to actually pause its growth. So by doing low stress training, which means we're not trimming, we're not pruning, we're simply holding the plant at one end by the main stem, and then we're moving this ring at the other end very slowly over time. So it's a very gentle shift of getting that plant to grow horizontally. So that's the low stress, and that's the reason why it doesn't take as long to fill this unit as it would if you were doing it by hand.
And it's really obvious how this is really beneficial to growers in like urban areas or just anywhere in the world. Just gives them the ability to get access to agriculture right there in their own home. And I'm sure that investors out there can also see these sort of benefits too, because I get a chance to look at the cap rates every day, and I'm watching these numbers. They're growing. Like, how does that work? Are you allowed to speak on that? There's a lot of questions about that.
Yeah. So that's what's strange about regulation crowdfunding. So for those of you that are new to what we're doing, one of the ways that we raise money is through crowdfunding. Dre and I bootstrapped the company to a certain point, but we obviously needed some support. We needed financial support. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to go out into the crowd. We wanted our early adopters, our fans, our supporters to be able to be a part of our financial success. So we decided to do crowdfunding, and it's called regulation crowdfunding. And the regulation part is regulated by the SEC, So that's the Security and Exchange Commission. So they have very strict requirements, and one of those requirements is that I cannot talk about the details of our actual capital raise. I have to send everybody to our StartEngine page where everyone gets to see the same information. The information is consistent, and everyone's getting access to the same information. Sometimes people hear about insider trading and all that type of stuff, where some people get access to information that other people aren't privy to. Well, when it comes to regulated crowdfunding, they did not want that. They wanted to make sure that everybody had access to the same information. So in order to do that, everything has to go through the StartEngine page. So I always say to people who are interested in investing, the minimum is very low. Anyone can invest. Family, friends. We tried to do this so that anyone could participate. If you have any questions about the investment opportunity, there's a way to ask those questions in StartEngine. You can ask a question in the comments section, and I will reply to you there, so that way everybody gets access to my answer. We're excited about it. It really allows a lot of flexibility for startups. So if you're an entrepreneur looking to get an idea off the ground, maybe you're a little bit worried about having to come up with a value, or trying to raise money, or trying to pitch. Maybe pitching isn't your thing. There's people who have great ideas that could be great CEOs, great entrepreneurs, but they just might not be really comfortable at doing the pitch, tour. Regulation crowdfunding is another great way to do it, and we recommend it.
Nice. So as an entrepreneur and as a grower yourself, and also you're an investor too. You do have some investing in your background.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You want me to talk about that, or should we skip over it?
And then on top of that, you're a real legitimate advocate and an activist. You've gone before local government to deliver some points that anyone can look on your YouTube page and see are like welcomed by a lot of claps. Seems like you got a lot of support for what you were speaking about in that particular video, and we can link that video later. But is there anything going on right now in Massachusetts where you are that kind of crossed your desk that's kind of on your mind right now?
Oh man, Massachusetts is crazy. I mean, there's always stuff going on when it comes to regulation in cannabis, regulation of hemp. We're one of the first states to legalize it for medicinal. Also, one of the first group of states to legalize it for recreational. And we also have hemp. That's federally legal as well since 2018. I got into the industry more from the advocacy perspective when I first started joining groups like Women Grow. Now Elevate Northeast. I'm a founding member of Elevate Northeast. I follow groups like MRCC, that's the Massachusetts Recreational Consumer Council, MRCC. I get a lot of my news from them. But one of the things that I knew off the bat, and that was a few years ago when the laws were being drafted, and it was time for us to actually make our voices heard about how we wanted the industry to look in Massachusetts. You had to get out there and talk to people in town hall. You had to speak to selectmen. You had to go to your city councils and just participate and get out there. And it was strange for me. I had never really been very politically active like that before, but just knew from watching the people before me, the people that have already been advocating, the people that are already doing all the activism, that you really got to, I don't want to say fight, but you got to make it known what it is that you want, and stand for it, and make it and be vocal about it. So yeah, I spoke at a few town halls, the town of Mashpee, and actually we luckily were able to win that that vote as a result of that meeting, and you're actually allowed to grow recreationally in my town. But in regards to news in Massachusetts right now we're dealing with hemp issues. MDAR. MDAR is the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Research or Registration. I don't know. MDAR. MDAR. Nonetheless, about a couple of weeks ago, they came out with a notice saying that you can no longer sell CBD products in food. You could do it on topicals, oils, things like that, but the FDA has not yet come out with rules and guidance for hemp-based, CBD-based edible products. So since we don't have the guidance, it's illegal. That's basically what they said. However, when you drive around, and this is not just in Massachusetts, this is probably wherever you are, when you drive around, there's CBD products on all the shelves, there's people selling this stuff everywhere. So it was really very confusing, specifically in Massachusetts, where we now allow recreational cannabis to be sold in edibles. So you can buy a cookie with cannabis in it, but you can't buy a cookie with just hemp CBD in it, as of right now, and that's ridiculous. So a lot of groups and a lot of local groups in Massachusetts have been really active about it, and one of the things I wanted to do was a shout out to the Mass Hemp Coalition. The Mass Hemp Coalition was put together by a group of individuals, Dr. Marian McNabb from C3RN, Randy as well. We also had Laura Beener from the Healing Rose. We had Julie Agron, a lot of other people that really just came together really quickly. After this announcement came out, they got together like the next day, created the Mass Hemp Coalition, got a bunch of support together, did some rallying at the State House in Boston. That's been in the news on the Boston Globe. So I just want to give a shout out to those people that are still doing the work of advocating for us to have a safe, equitable industry for both cannabis and hemp.
Awesome. Well, Aja, thank you for taking this time. We do understand that you are on a tight schedule, and it is approaching that time when you usually disappear from the Slack. So we do have a few questions here from the people watching the live. So
awesome.
If you don't mind, I'll just throw a couple at you.
I'm glad to know that people are watching. Thank you very much for sticking around.
Awesome. Okay, so we have our first question. It's is it okay if I group it together? It's a double part question.
Sure.
Okay, so it's from Jesse D. Watts. He would like to know, is the lighting part of the system, and also is this a hydroponic system?
Oh, good question. Thanks for asking that. So one of the things that we wanted to do when we designed this system is we did not want to dictate the type of lights that you had to use. We didn't want to make you have to use soil or hydroponic. We really wanted to allow you to have the freedom to choose. So the lights do not come with the system. You do need to have a good set of lights that can put out a nice output. You want to make sure that it's uniform, but you can use LED, you can use HPS, CMH. It's up to you really. We of course use LED in our lab for two reasons: energy efficiency, and also because we can keep the profile lower, the vertical height lower. With LED lights, you can get the lights a lot closer to the plants, so you can make the most out of your space that way. So that's why we like LED. When it comes to the grow media, you can use soil, you can use hydroponics, you can use aeroponics even if you wanted to. Right now, what we're doing is we're using a recirculating deep water culture system. We've also just done regular old ebb and flow. We've done that as well. And we've done just straight old school deep water culture without the recirculating. So we tried a few different hydroponic methods. We also did a soil grow as well. So yeah, you can use any type of media that you want. We don't want to force you to do certain things. We want you to be comfortable, and we understand that anything new to your growing method, you don't want to make too many changes. You don't want to be too abrupt about the changes, but you may want some help when it comes to automatically training the plant. And that's what we're here for.
Great. And so another question, and this is Jesse D. Watts also, and he wants to let you know he's from Oklahoma. Oklahoma's in the building.
Nice. And
we also have some other folks in here, and they're shouting out their city. Colorado's also in the building
too.
Nice.
So
shout out to Gabrielle. But one of the questions that we do see here in the chat floating around is this going to be a financially viable product for home grow? They really want to know, like, is this, and that's one of those tight questions because, of course, it's different for everyone.
Yeah, it's different for everyone. And I really, straight up, like as my stepfather says, I'm going to be straight up with you. This is not for people who just dabble and grow. This isn't for people who just want to experience what it's like to grow 1 or 2 plants. This is for people who actually need high yields, maybe because they're a caregiver and they've got patients that are waiting for a good amount of product, or maybe you're a caregiver for yourself or you're a patient, or maybe you have a small manufacturing operation where you're using this to make your own edibles. But this is definitely for someone who needs high yields and will be in some capacity making some sort of financial gain from it. And also, if you're one of those people that, for your own purposes, if you're going to a dispensary and paying dispensary prices, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a year, yes, it's a good investment. But if, like I said, if you're just getting into growing, this is your first year growing, and this may not be the unit for you. This is for people who really want to increase their yield because they really need to, and they also want to save on their time. So that's the other thing. It depends on how valuable your time is. For me, when I was traveling a lot, I wasn't really able to be here every day. I could automate the lights, I could automate the temperature, I could automate the humidity, but I could not automate how to control the plant. So for me, it was worth it. So it definitely depends. One of the things that we're trying to do for our first round of batch units that we're selling is we're looking for some people who would be willing to allow us to assemble the unit on site at their location and help set it up. We're gonna also try to make this as affordable as possible. But again, it's a new technology, and until we really get it really refined and really developed, the cost to manufacture it might be a little bit higher than we want.
Awesome.
Yep.
We have another question from Gabriel, who's involved in the grow and dispensary business in Colorado.
Okay.
He would like to know, will there be YouTube channel tutorials?
Ooh, that's a good idea.
That's a great idea, actually.
That's a very great idea. So, yeah, we can hook that type of stuff up. And one of the things also, so we have the Growers Club. We have the Growers Club. That's in Facebook. So if you follow us on Facebook, you message us, you can talk to our Facebook Messenger, and they'll invite you in to the Growers Club. In the Growers Club, we're going to do a lot more of these kind of one-on-one time in the lab discussions where I might just go on live or take pictures or do videos, and I'll drop that type of stuff in the Growers Club group. So Gabrielle, if you're interested to kind of follow this along, learn more about the development, please definitely check out the Growers Club.
Awesome, and shout out to Mary Jane, who's in Boston. Boston's in the building.
Oh, nice. Local.
Awesome. And I'm sure there's more questions coming in, so everyone, if you can hear me, just go ahead and send your questions. If we don't get them today, we will get them in our next episode here. I think we have one more here. Okay, and so we have a lot of following up to do, and we're taking care of that on our end. Aja, we just want to thank you again for taking the time out of your day to have this talk. And it's awesome.
Excellent.
It's a real pleasure.
Thank you very much, everyone.